0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. And let the city celebrate.
That's the call of the late, great Harry Kalas as the Philadelphia Phillies finally won the World Series, a moment that will live forever in the hearts and souls of Philly fans everywhere. This hour on It's Your Call, we take you inside that amazing 2008 season and give you the play-by-play of how it all came together for the reigning world champs. Stick with us. It was the moment that Phillies fans had been waiting for decades for. Philadelphia finally won the World Series and became the champions of the world. We're going to relive that moment and, in fact, quite a bit of the fabulous 2008 season throughout the next half hour here. Hi there, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle with a great show lined up for you if you're a baseball fan. Now, you notice I didn't say you had to be a Phillies fan. Well, that's because this show deals with an outstanding baseball season, one that saw ups, downs, injuries, comebacks, and of course, dreams coming true. Yep, it ended with the Phillies finally winning the title and getting to hold that parade that everyone seemed to want for a lifetime. But what did it take for them to get to Broad Street? Well, we're going to take you behind the scenes, put you on the bench with the boys, and share some insight that you won't find anywhere else. That's why I say this is a show for fans of the sport. Now, I bet you're wondering, well, how can you do that, Lynn? Well, that's because I have a very special guest here in the studio with me. He is the senior baseball writer at ESPN.com, Jayson Stark. He is now the author of a great book that you have to get called Worth the Wait, Tales of the 2008 Phillies. And I have read this, and I'm telling you, if you love baseball, you're going to love this book. Jayson, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you so much for being with us. I have to admit, I was not born and raised in Philadelphia, although everyone thinks I am because I sound like a Philadelphian. But I was quite excited to relive this season and kind of remember some of the moments that made it so memorable. What kind of response have you gotten to the book?
It's really been exciting, really been fun. You know, this is one of those feel-good books at a feel-good time in Philadelphia. There haven't been that many feel-good times in Philadelphia. And I've been doing these book signings all over the area. And people are in this Zen state right now, you know, where they want to freeze time, freeze the moment. And I've had people line up and buy 13 books at a time to give to everybody they know. So feel free to do that, by the way.
Well, as I said, I highly recommend it. The season for Phillies fans was almost too good to be true. You describe it like that in the book. How so?
Well, anytime a team wins, and anytime especially a team from Philadelphia wins, the planets have to line up right. And it really was amazing to look back and think of how they lined up for that Phillies team. And you know, Charlie Manuel was really the guy who first pointed out to me that, you know, I don't know how close attention you paid, but the game in which they clinched the NL East was the next to last day of the season. And they clinched it on one of the most amazing double plays that you'll ever see. Jimmy Rollins to Chase Utley to Ryan Howard. And because they made that play, everything fell into place. Now, if they don't win that day, the next day Cole Hamels has to pitch. Right. Because he doesn't, he's lined up to pitch game one of every postseason series. They get to open at home because they won the division. They don't have to go to Wrigley Field or anywhere on the road. They play a team in the Brewers that they just swept in a 4-game series a couple of weeks earlier. It was almost like the planets said, it's your time. And when it was their time, they knew what to do next. You
start this book in spring training of 2008, and you followed the Phillies all the way to that momentous day, right, at the parade. Did you get a sense in Florida that this was a team of destiny?
Well, I don't know about destiny, but they were definitely different than I'd seen them before. And there's a really interesting chapter in the book about this, where, you know, this was a bunch of guys. They were always the team that got to the finish line and watched somebody else win, and then they hit the tape. You know, they were the masters of the close call, and they kept hearing, "You don't know how to win. You've never won. You don't get it. You don't get the whole idea of winning." And then in 2007, they caught the Mets in September after being way behind. And when they got to spring training the next year, they didn't have to answer the questions anymore about why don't you know how to win? You know, why is it always somebody else? And there was just a different feeling, a team feeling. Jimmy Rollins was one of the most vocal guys in talking about it, just about how once you've won, it's no longer about what I'm going to do or what you're going to do or what that guy's going to do. It's about what we're going to do.
And that was really the underlying theme, if I understand it correctly, in the book, that it wasn't just about individual players, that in 2008, the thing that made the difference for the Philadelphia Phillies was that they played as a team and not as a group of individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most team-oriented group of people I've ever met in a clubhouse. And I mean, they had to learn to get to that stage. Charlie Manuel talks about it in the book where, I mean, there was a point earlier in their careers where, look, they had to establish themselves too. They had to show what kind of players they were. But then by last year, it was different. There was a bunch of guys that played with a tremendous sense of purpose, and it was all about winning. They thought they were going to win every game they played. Sometimes they ran out of outs, but they had an incredible number of come-from-behind wins, miracle wins, especially at the end of the year. And, you get that if you play for each other, not for you, not for yourself.
All right. On that note, we're going to invite our viewers to be part of the conversation as well. I want to know what you think about this. So I do invite you to email your thoughts or your opinions to me. Number one, I want to know what your memory of the 2008 Philadelphia Phillies team will be. How would you describe that season? And let's talk a little bit about 2008 versus 2009. Do you think they'll be able to repeat? So few have been able to, but are the Phillies destined to do it again? And again, how will you remember the season? How does this season, 2008, compare to any other season that you recall? If you want to tell us what you think, you have a couple of different ways that you can do it. You can go to csnphilly.com and then put in It's Your Call or IYC under the search. That will take you to my webpage where you'll be able to leave me a comment. Of course, while you're there, we always ask you to check out everything that Sportsnet is doing, but you can also take my web poll. We're asking if the Phillies can repeat in 09. A couple of different choices there. It's a non-scientific survey. Another way that you can tell me what you think is to email me directly right here at the studio. That's tcn_IYC@cable.comcast.com. And you can find me on Facebook, MySpace, or YouTube. And I have to tell you something, Jayson, I put the question up on Facebook, told people we were going to have you on the show, and gave them the opportunity to tell us. And the response was absolutely incredible. I mean, people absolutely loved that 2008 team. They agreed with everything that you said in the book, that it was, a team playing as a team, and that it had some individuals who really, at a time when they absolutely had to make that magic play, they came through.
Well, it's true. If you go back to that series against the Dodgers, for example, I mean, there's a famous game known as the Matt Stairs game, where, I mean, that's a game the Phillies had no business winning. But
Matt Stairs had no business winning it for them, right?
Where did he come from? There's a guy
until then, it was like, Matt who?
He didn't play one game for the Phillies until September,
right.
And then hit the biggest home run of October. I mean, that's kind of the year it was for them.
And he was our own version of Mr. October, right? Certainly not Reggie Jackson by any stretch of the imagination, but he hit it when he needed to, right? Okay. Well, Jayson, we also went out to the ballpark and we gave some of the Phillies fans there a chance to tell us what they remember about last year's season. So you want to hear what they had to say?
Sure.
All right. This is what we call in person.
I remember the rained out final games of the World Series. I had tickets to those games, both parts, first and second.
The parade. You can't beat the parade here.
Them winning the World Series. I like the World Series too. It was very exciting.
Bradley's going perfect, making the playoffs, all those things.
Bradley falling down on his knees and Ruiz jumping on top of him.
Last year we came down for Game 5 and it got rained out. And I couldn't make it back to the next one, and I had a ticket here. So it sucks, but that was my most memorable moment, just coming here and making history.
Making history, that is what the Philadelphia Phillies did in the 2008 season. We're giving you an opportunity to tell us what you think about it. And we have a great guest here, Jayson Stark, who's written a book called Worth the Wait. Do you think it really was worth the wait? I know that you were there in 1980 covering the first World Series that the Phillies ever won, but it took them 98 years to get to that one.
Right. But this in its own way was even more powerful because not only had the Phillies not won since 1980, I mean, we'd had 25 years